The LA Kings have a lot to deal with on and off the ice, but they do keep finding ways to stay competitive. Eddie Garcia of Locked On LA Kings joins us to discuss that and the second half outlook in LA next on the Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, win or lose on that first $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On LA Kings, Eddie Garcia. And Eddie, let's start with the big picture here. A lot of things going on in LA. I know the Kings are on the road right now. How big of a distraction have the wildfires been? I know they had to cancel one game.
Yeah, it probably helps the team to be on the road, to be honest with you. But at the same time, they're also leaving behind family and friends that are in a situation that is uncertain. Things are looking better, but it's still, it's just been a horrific situation here. And for people who haven't been maybe glued to it the way we all are, we've had fires before. The thing that's really made this one different is the winds. We've had really strong winds, and it takes, a small fire, and those winds carry those embers all over the place, and it just spreads, and it's very difficult to get a handle on when it's so many places, all over spread out, so. And then the winds made it more difficult for the helicopters and the planes that drop the fire and the retardant and the water onto these things to do what they need to do. So that's what's made this one really different. And also, some of these fires in the past have been more in a foothill type area. Now these have hit pretty residential areas really hard. The Pacific Palisades, a lot of families live there. I mean, it's kind of an upper class neighborhood, but these are real neighborhoods, and it's been completely destroyed in other places as well. So it's been really hard. There's no way to kind of escape the reality of it, even if you're in a situation like me where I'm not really in an affected area and likely won't be. But you walk outside, you smell the smoke, the ashes on the car and the patio furniture, and it's on the news 24/7. And if you don't know people directly, you certainly know people of people, right, that have been affected by this. So as far as the team, though, again, maybe it's best that they're kind of away, but I'm sure their minds are also back home where, they at least know people who have been affected by this.
You've been watching the team over the whole season, many seasons. Do you think this has affected their play on the ice?
Well, they've only played 2 games, since. The first game was in Winnipeg, and I really think that they were inspired to kind of do their part to lift the spirits in their way of the city. And, they had a sticker on their helmet, they had a patch on their jersey, and they went out and played a very inspired game against a really good Winnipeg team and beat them on the road. And they said afterwards, hey, the city was in our hearts, and we wanted to play well for them. And so they did. The next game may be a letdown the very next night against not as good of a team, against the Calgary Flames, whose their game against was postponed. This was not the makeup game of the game postponed. And they didn't, they started well, but it kind of faded as it went along. And I don't know if it had an effect on them or not, but they've got Edmonton coming up on Monday. Huge game, obviously, against the team that has eliminated the Kings 3 straight years in the playoffs. And as it stands now, they probably will meet up for a 4th straight year in the postseason. The Kings beat the Oilers in LA recently, but that'll be a big game for the Kings. So we'll see how it affects them kind of going along.
goaltending and defense have been strengths of this team. Right now, they are ranked first in the league, fewest goals allowed. Talk to me about the goaltending the Kings have been getting and why this team has been so successful defensively.
Well, I've always compared it, and I don't know if it's a good comparison or not, but the goaltending to me is like a quarterback with his offensive line. A quarterback can be very effective when he's got a great offensive line, when he's got all the time in the world to throw. And that's been the case for Kings goaltenders of late. Since Jonathan Quick has left, they've had some veteran fill-in goalies, Jonas Korpisalo, Cam Talbot. Now it's Darcy Kemper. But even having said that, Kemper has been even better than I thought he would be. This is a guy that lost his starting job in Washington last year. He comes back to LA where he had spent a season before and was pretty good years ago before he went to Colorado and won a cup. And he seems to have been rejuvenated. I'm sure getting a chance to be a number one goalie again after what he went through in Washington was very motivational for him. And he's run with it. He's been better than expected. Top 10 in the NHL in goals against and save percentage. I think he might be even top 5. Maybe, if he can have a second half like his first half, maybe even a dark horse Vezina finalist. I think we all think Connor Hellebuck's going to win it, barring something crazy. But I think he has a shot at being a finalist, which would be huge. So he's played really well. But it is the defense. The team defense for the Kings is what their calling card is. It's what their identity is. And the defensive core has been really good without Drew Doughty all season, which has been surprising. Vladislav Gavrikov has moved from the second pairing on the left side to the top pairing on the right side, and he's been amazing. He's in a contract year, so this is going to turn into something really good for him in his career. He should get a big payday from either the Kings or someone else. So he's helped to really fill that void. Drew Doughty's coming back, hopefully in the next month. Maybe they're going to play, since they're playing so well, maybe they'll wait after the Four Nations tournament and give them some extra time because there's no rush. But again, the Kings calling card is their team defense, and their defensive core without Drew Doughty has been tremendous. And Jim Hiller, their head coach, has been running this 11-7 setup for most of the year with 7 defensemen. And it's worked out well, obviously, for the Kings. So the defense has been strong. They're in every game. They don't score a ton, but they usually score enough to win.
So you mentioned the Four Nations tournament. That is about a month away, give or take. And then you have a 10-day break and then maybe 3-4 weeks until the trade deadline. What do you see the Kings' biggest needs in the second half, and what do you see them doing to get ready for the playoff run?
Well, I think the good news is they don't need a lot. I think they feel really good about their top 3 lines. Pretty deep, pretty talented, all can, are effective. Again, there's no superstar, elite skilled guy on the team, but they have a lot of really good players. And I think right now the Kings are really, they're, greater than the parts, right? The what they make up as a team. They play great team hockey. It's not always as exciting as seeing somebody like Connor McDavid do the things that he does or whoever, but it's effective and they're winning and no one's going to complain. And but as far as what they need, their power play is atrocious. It really is. It's the one thing that you look at and say, that's bad. It's not below average. It's bad. And I don't know why. I really don't. I know they have a lot of left-handed shots. People have pointed to that, and maybe it kind of makes them just a team that's only dangerous on one side of the ice. But even then, it shouldn't be that bad. So if they can pick up a veteran right-handed shot who can be effective on the power play, I think that's what they would be looking at. I know there has been some talk about maybe Kyle Palmieri of the Islanders, who I know you're familiar with. Mm-hmm. So that's a name that has been mentioned. But again, if they're looking to add anything, and I don't think they're really looking to add much, I think that specific kind of player would be what they're looking for.
All right. Well, it's going to be a heck of a race. I know the standings are tight in the Pacific Division. Eddie, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, you can certainly just Google Locked On LA Kings. I always tell people, make sure you include the LA, or you might get an NBA team from Northern California. Also, on social media at Locked On LA Kings. And if you want to hear more about the Kings, we'd love to have you join us.
All right, Eddie, thank you so much. Stay safe out there.
Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are just better with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. And it's not just the NFL playoffs. Hockey fans, use your knowledge of the game of hockey and your favorite team to get exciting opportunities on FanDuel. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.